Does Paul definitely say that homosexuality should be prohibited? I'm answering your questions. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. There are three passages that are attributed to Paul in Romans, 1 Corinthians, and 1 Timothy. Romans and 1 Corinthians, no debate over whether Paul wrote them. 1 Timothy, there's broad scholarly agreement that wasn't Paul, but we'll talk about it anyway. So let's start with 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9. It's a long list of people who are sinful, like a list of really sinful people. And it has two words in it, malakoi and arsenokoitai. Malakoi is an interesting word. It's used a bunch in the ancient world, and it's never actually used in biblical sources that are outside the Bible to refer to homosexuality. When it's used in moral teachings, it's generally used to mean men who cannot control their appetite. Then you have arsenokoitai. It's like a compound word. Arsen is men, and the koitai part is bed, or sort of a euphemism for having sexual intercourse. When you put that together with what was going on in the ancient culture at that time, there were men who were exploiting others sexually, and there was a practice of older men who exploited younger men in that way. And so modern scholars will talk about it in terms of men who exploit others sexually, or in taking it in its most sort of accurate way is men who engage in illicit acts. So what happened? How did we get to homosexuality? Well, it really began in 1946. There's a great documentary called 1946, the movie that chronicles the mistranslation. And in 1946, when they were creating the New Revised Standard Version, they combined those two terms. They collapsed it into a single English word, homosexuality. And it was brought up to the translation committee that, hey, this is not a good translation. And the people on that translation committee agreed, but they had already sort of submitted the translation for publication. And so that revision actually never made it in the text. And so that text was widely accepted, widely used, and was the basis for other texts like the New International Version that was popular when I was a kid. And New International Version called it men who have sex with men. And then there was another version created because people were concerned that the New International Version and that translation committee was much too liberal, and they created the ESV that is really popular now as well. And they went back to the New Revised Standard Updated Edition and translated it as homosexual. But again, that word in the Greek has two words, malakoi and arsenokoitai. So that brings us to the translation of the Bible that scholars consider today to be the most accurate English translation on the market. That is the New Revised Standard Updated Edition. And in that, they translate each word individually. And the translation is first, male prostitutes, and second, men who engage in illicit acts, not homosexuality, because these words have no indication that they refer to anything like homosexuality. Which brings us to 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 10. Again, this one is widely accepted to not have been written by Paul, but sort of attributed to him. And in 1 Corinthians 1:10, it's another list. It only uses arsenokoitai, and we've already explained that. So that then brings us to Romans chapter 1, specifically verses 26 and 27. In that passage, it says that men gave up natural relations for unnatural ones, and they were inflamed with lust for each other, and likewise, women did the same thing. This is important when you read this, that you read it understanding the ancient culture and the modern culture. So the ancient culture really did not have a concept of homosexuality in the way that we understand it now. We understand that homosexuality is something that people experience from the moment they were born. It is an orientation. And if you talk to your gay friends, you will find out that that's it, that their natural desire is for someone of the same gender as them. So when you read this, and you read it sort of in its original culture, you are understanding that they understood that that was the natural desire. That was what every man or every woman had at their core. And we understand that more fully because we've had a lot more time to think about it and study it in modern science and all of those things. And so when you apply that ancient text to our modern understanding, it's talking about giving up natural desires for unnatural ones. So in terms of homosexuality, the natural desire that those people have is for this person of the same gender. That would imply that to give up that natural desire for what is not natural to them, so a homosexual person acting as a heterosexual person, that is what's wrong. So that's a very different understanding, but it's based on taking that text, understanding it in its original culture and what it means, and then applying that with our modern understanding. And when you are reading the Bible, you have to always understand that it was written thousands of years ago to a culture in a different part of the world, culture that is very different than ours. And you are always having to be mindful of that and to try to extract the deeper truth and then apply that to your modern world. So going back to the original question, did Paul actually prohibit homosexuality? When you take it with all of the information that we have, the answer is no. Paul did not do that. So when you're forming your spiritual beliefs, when you're choosing those and using the Bible as one of the part of the basis for that, and you're looking for something, a belief around homosexuality, you will not find in the Bible, and specifically in the writings of Paul, anything that supports an anti-LGBTQ belief.